We're going to start it with Pow. You're going to edit this, right? Go sit Pat. As he calls me the pro, I fuck it all up.
Yeah, that's exactly why I called you the pro.
All right, here we go. KILPOP Sessions, and I tell you what, dude, I am so stoked to have you, Kevin Churko.
Thanks.
For one, I haven't seen you in a few years, so I'm really happy to catch up with you. It's been a minute. But for two, there's so much depth with you, and you mean so much to the music world, more than you know. And so I really want to get into some good stuff with you. And the most pressing question I have for you right now, though, really, it's the most important thing I want to know. What were you listening to on the way here?
Oh my God, you're gonna hate this.
I like it. Bring it.
I was just listening to news.
You were listening to the news.
To the news.
Okay, is that like a thing of like I make pizza for a living, and the last thing I'm gonna do when I go home is make pizza?
It's completely that because, you know, if someone like myself is listening and creating heavy music all day, or any kind of music all day, usually when you go home, you want to listen to the opposite. And I definitely have the whiplash kind of tastes where if I was listening to music on the way here, it would be Chet Baker, you know, a trumpet player, you know, West Coast jazz guy. Something mellow like that, completely mellow. And then after listening to that for long enough or something similar, I mean, yacht rock is always a good time.
Oh, hell yeah, baby.
So
Let's do this. Bob Skaggs.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
I mean, you might as well call it Toto. But
yeah.
But after listening to that for a while, then you kind of get the ambition to stick on something a little bit heavier. But, you know, when I'm working 12 hours a day, it's like I'm definitely not listening to that on the way home, on the way there. I'm resting my ears, listening to other things, you know.
Sometimes I find, because I have similar-ish, I listen to music for a living, obviously. I'll roll in silence.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That's the best day.
Isn't it? Just driving the car in silence.
I mean, a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have guests or my wife in my passenger seat, something like that, I mean, some people just have to have sound on.
Right.
I'm completely not that guy. I don't even have to have the middle of the forest birds, nature. I can stick earplugs in and meditate with that, and that would be my method, actually. I don't want to hear a thing.
When COVID hit and I had lost my particular job that I had for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to music for 3 months.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean I didn't hear music.
Yeah.
It was around somewhere. But I didn't have it in my car. I didn't have it in my house. I didn't purposefully bring music to myself.
And was
for
that
3 months. It was the most cleansing, wonderful. I floated in a pool for 3 months during the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
It was
wonderful.
It was wonderful.
I mean, my family always talks about those months because, like yourself, I know a lot of people had some bad times and lived through some, you know, bad moments and tragedies. Fortunately for us, there wasn't many of that.
Right.
So those are some of the best months of our lives, to be honest with you, when the world stopped.
Yeah.
And for the first time in probably 30 years, I was sitting in my pool or lying in my pool with my wife for all day, day after day after day after day. And I'd never done that really in my entire life. It's always work, 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 make hay while the sun shines, you know. Time to do it again. Got Sunday off, but then Monday back at it. Maybe I don't get Sunday off. You know, work through so many holidays, and it's just you get caught in that trap. And honestly, it was to the detriment of my career in a certain sense, because then I realized, oh, this is actually a different kind of living life. And it was wonderful to experience that. Not as wonderful for some of my clients then that when I slowed down a lot, I had to let some go. But not because I didn't love them to death or whatever. I just, you know, I just knew I needed to start living a different kind of life. Or I had an insight into a different kind of life. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is what regular people do. Maybe not all people do that, but I thought, wow, this is truly, you know, especially in Vegas at that time, springtime in Vegas. Heated the pool a little prematurely, get out there, a couple of cool drinks. I mean, and my kids too. It was heaven for us all. I mean, they were in their own homes, in their own pools, but all of a sudden you didn't have to feel you had to pick up the phone. Nobody was calling. Everybody was dealing with their own stuff. You know, you were listening to different podcasts. In fact, I didn't even really start listening to podcasts until then. In the pool, what do you do in the pool? You can have music going, but like yourself, time to have a break.
Yep.
I started listening to different podcasts, started going for longer walks. I mean, it was, I'm sad to say, I don't want to offend anybody, but it was really a wonderful time.
Considering the job loss or whatever, but I would still always look upon 2020 as incredibly fond. The summer of 2020, very fondly.
Right.
Same thing. Floating in a pool, whatever.
Everything can wait. The problems of the
Yeah.
world can wait.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just going to deal with here and now.
Yeah.
And that was really the power of now, so to speak, was that, okay, I get it now. All we
Yeah.
have to do is deal with this.
Yeah.
As long as one can pay their bills, and again, I understand
And
a lot of
survive.
people
Yeah.
have trouble, so I don't want to diminish that situation.
Sure.
But lucky for me, I wasn't in that situation. So
You started your career in the pop hot AC world with like Michael Bolton and Celine Dion.
well, I wouldn't say I started my career. I mean that in
Yeah.
a sense. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, please go.
But that was really as an engineer working for another producer.
Okay, yeah.
So I used to work for a guy named Mutt Lang, who existed by that
Right.
time in that world. Even though he did Back in Black and other rock things, by that time he was doing what would be called the chick pop
Shania Twain
decade of his life
and all that. Yeah.
So I was his engineer.
Yeah.
And responsible sonically. So, but I mean, I guess it's still the start of my career.
Dude, that's how Jimmy Iovine started. He fell into,
If I take out that, I don't have this. So
100%.
Yeah.
What was it like working with like a Celine Dion? Like,
well, in her case, I have to be honest and say I didn't work with her because at the time I was living in Switzerland, working for Mutt, and she recorded all her vocals in Montreal at
Okay.
her house. So Mutt flew there and recorded all the vocals. She didn't want to come to Switzerland, and rightly so. She was living her best life. So Mutt had to go there, and he didn't take me along on that trip. I was pretty new at that time,
Yeah.
in his world. So he just used Celine's. Celine has a guy. Has her guy. So I didn't
Yeah.
get to work with her. Since then, now, of course, we both live in town here. Now she's been to my studio many, many times.
the Hideout, huh? Really?
In fact, that commercial, that NFL commercial
Yeah.
that she was on, she filmed it at my place.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
She's a cool lady.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, very cool. But you did work with Britney Spears.
I didn't even work with her.
No, that got shipped to you too?
I met her later.
Okay.
Afterwards, of course, when she was in Switzerland. But no, that was actually that's a great story because that was the story that gave me my job, working for Mutt.
Okay.
So basically, Mutt had a different guy, a Swiss guy at that point, and Britney showed up to record her vocals on a song, and she showed up, and all of a sudden, the song wasn't ready. All the work that Mutt had done, all the prep work, was gone. She had nothing to sing on. They couldn't find the files, and so basically, what happened was she had to wait for 3 days while Mutt rebuilt the track and re-recorded everything he needed to re-record, and then she was staying. Mutt had this beautiful Swiss chateau, but the studio was in the old barn. And in fact, half of the barn was still a barn, and half it was a studio with, accommodation for artists and that sort of thing. Like, it was very high end. But she had been sitting around with the horses long enough that her allergies were killing her. And by the time that they were ready for her to sing, she couldn't sing because her allergies were crazy, and she was all puffy and throat closed up. So she had to go back to America, which meant Mutt had to go back to America to record too. And so that, I think, was one of his last straws where he started looking around for a different person. And luckily that was me.
Ta-da.
So then I parachuted in for that job and then worked with him on that entire track, but didn't get to record her voice on that.
Was she?
Strike two.
That's okay. I like coming to the plate.
But she was very, very hospitable when she came to Switzerland to tour. It was great because then I was able to take my family. My daughter at that time was probably like 9 or 10, so she was really into it. And my son was later teen, so he was still into it too.
Yeah. You were super
Oh,
dad.
for sure. Going backstage at a Britney Spears concert. Yeah, it was cool.
Did you see the crazy coming on in her then?
No.
No? Yeah, that became a later in life thing with her, huh?
Of course, I've seen what everybody else has seen,
Sure.
but I'm not behind the scenes. I tend to really try not to make a judgment on something like that, even though it's hard not to. I mean, I just saw some recent stuff, and all you can feel is empathy for,
Right.
or maybe not empathy because I'm not in that situation, but sympathy for her situation. And everything that's gone down, I mean, that would be difficult. So-
it's pretty tough. Tell me about rolling into the rock world. My first introduction to you as a producer, as the guy, was Ozzy.
Yeah. You know, I wish I could do those records with what I know now after all the years after that. But
Why is that?
you know, because you get better throughout your life, right? I mean, even that record, those first two albums I made with him, I learned an incredible amount in every way. And, you know, I mean, I was ready for it and I did the best job I could. But fast forward 15 years after that, and the knowledge I had now could make a better record.
Right.
You know, I love him to death still. But as you would expect, someone who had never produced a record of that note or of that kind of an artist, a lifetime artist, it was crazy. But, you know, I just tended to try to not think about it and just show up every day. Even with working with Zach, I mean, both those guys. I mean, I would sit in the room sometimes and go, "What am I doing here?" I mean, you know, this is so far beyond me. But I grabbed that opportunity as hard as I could and just kept, you know, doing whatever I could to make it happen. By that time, he had already tried to do records for quite a few years and bailed on them. So the goal was just to get one finished and to get it actually released. And there's a lot of things, people that have to prove it and go through it. So, you know, for me, nothing but success and graciousness from that project, which have obviously led to a lot of the other things that I'm doing too. So,
Ozzy, in my opinion, or at least in my experience, is a wonderful man to be with. He's a very gracious person, as far as what my experience was.
Yeah.
Is yours the same?
oh my God, yeah, he could, you know, he did tell me the same story several times, and every time it was better.
Yeah.
Which is the sign of a true artist. Every
Right.
time you do anything, it gets better and
Put
better,
some extra
right?
color on it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was really such a joy to work with. I mean, I you know, you have to be careful. We were talking about this earlier on. You have to be careful when you meet the important people in your life, or I shouldn't say important people in life, but the important artists that you've loved, you know, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's a tragedy, and many of us had happened where you meet somebody who you love their music, and you meet them, and maybe they're having a bad day, maybe it's not, you know, a good time for them, and it does sort of taint your listening to that music you've been listening to your whole life. All of a sudden, every time you listen to it, you remember those times.
Right.
And I've been so lucky almost every time. Like I really can't think of one artist I've met that it hasn't gone great, even though my friends have so many stories, and sometimes with the same people. But for whatever reason, you know, I've been lucky and exceptionally lucky with him. We had a great time. He's very comical.
Yep.
He tells great jokes. You know, he was just recently sober at that time, so
Yeah.
he's always on time. 90, like you know, the staff told me when I first started, you know, he may come down about, you know, because it was in his house, right, the Beverly Hills house. You know, he's going to come down probably, you know, 3 or 4 and talk to you about some of the recording and stuff. And then, you know, you'll go through some things and it won't last for very long. And then Zach will be in later and blah, blah, blah. And he started coming in at 3 or 4. And then a week later, he's 1 or 2. And pretty soon he's like waiting for me at 9 a.m. when I'm getting in, because I like to work early.
Right.
All of a sudden he'd be there waiting for me. So, I mean, it was really a great time and an exciting time for me and my family. And I think he probably had a great time too, because he asked me to do the next album as
Yeah.
well. So,
yeah. Be careful when you meet your heroes, and it worked out.
Oh, it really did. Yeah.
Yeah.
it really
He's
did.
incredible.
Not a bad word really to say.
No.
I mean, I can't think of one bad experience.
With Ozzy, yeah,
No.
me neither.
No.
Are you going to be in London for the show?
Still undetermined. I think I won't.
Oh,
but
bummer, yeah.
not for reasons that I don't want to be there, or
Yeah,
not for
of
reasons
course.
that I wouldn't love to be there. But
Yeah, man. It's you know, he's such a treasure.
yeah,
He really is.
he deserves all the good things that he gets.
Yeah, he really, really does. So you have worked on some of the most amazing pieces of work and art in the hard rock and metal world. including, am I wrong on this one? The entire Five Finger Death Punch collection?
The
Are we
entire
close?
the entire thing except for the first record.
Okay,
Yeah.
But for the second on, you're in.
The next 8.
Yeah. that band is a treasure as well. I love all of them. But did you grow with them and
For
go
sure.
through their?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, we were so connected.
Yeah.
Like financially, in a sense, we were all poor when we started those records. I wouldn't say poor, but
Sure.
just musicians starting out. None of them had really had any success. I had had some success with Ozzy, but not necessarily in a position where I was any different than them.
Middle class.
Yeah.
Middle class working musician, music people.
I would say maybe even less.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
But, I moved into Vegas. I moved here in 2005. I didn't tell Ozzy I was here at that time because he didn't want to lose that gig. But I didn't start that record till 2006, I believe. But I started the first Five Finger, I think maybe 2008 or 2009, and they had all moved here.
Yeah.
They were from other places.
Yeah.
Jason Hook at that time was still living in California, I believe. So he bought a house while he was working with us or me. So we kind of, and at the first day, Zoltan, the leader of the band, pulls up in his car. It's the same car as mine. He's wearing the same boots. I'm actually still wearing the same boots today.
Nice.
Not the same
Yeah.
boots, but the
same
10th
stuff,
pair
yeah.
of them. He's already moved on to other things. I'm a little bit more static, but it was. They had kind of had a made a splash, minor little hit, but nothing major. Some people who knew who I was, but nothing major. And we made the first record, and then the second one, and then here's the thing. Then everybody start doing better. The band starts doing better. First record was made in my house. Second record, most of it was made in my house, but then by that time I had a little bit more budget, so I built a studio here in town, which I don't think you were ever at, but the one at the bootlegger restaurant. Okay, so then I did the next bunch there, then bought the new
Hideout.
Graders studio and did a bunch, the rest of them there. They went on to living better lives and bigger houses and faster cars and more notoriety and better shows, bigger shows. So yeah, I would say that we absolutely grew with each other, and it was great because we could share that experience. It wasn't like I was this old mentor that, okay, boys, now I'm going to tell you how it's going to work.
Right.
And it's
you
not
weren't Rick Rubin
Right.
at the Beastie Boys.
And
or
it
something,
wasn't like they were Ozzy,
to
having all the leverage over me. It
Yeah.
was like, we're going to do this together with each other. And honestly, at the very start of it, I would never have guessed that it would have been eight records deep, and that we'd work each other right now, I don't know, more than 15 years, I guess. And considering that, the first one, I'm not sure how much I should say, but it's probably not anything but public, Some members of the band are ready to quit the entire time, and it goes,
they're a dramatic band.
They're artists.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah, they're
artists, and
yeah.
artists are passionate,
Yeah.
and it was wonderful to keep them all together and focus, and that was part of my duty as far as the recordings went. Once they get on the road, and that's of course other people's.
That's Jackie, yeah.
That's Jackie.
That's Jackie.
God bless Jackie. That's all I'll say.
Dude, she got that one down.
She's super great.
Yeah, she really is.
And really, honestly, she's the only one that's worked with the band longer than me, and she was about a year ahead of me. She was right from the start.
She brought me the bleeding.
Really.
So
Wow.
she was there. That was their first one, right? Yeah,
That was her.
That's right out of the gate.
Yeah.
She was on it, and
She's the one we
still
should blame.
strong.
We can completely blame her for all the Five Finger records.
She's great.
Or thank her. Let's thank her.
Oh, dude, totally. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Killer ears too.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Full Metal Jackie, by the way.
Yes.
Disturbed. How did that come along? I know because I remember when everybody thought Disturbed was broken up,
Yeah.
and they were actually hiding in Las Vegas with you.
Yeah, that was fun.
How'd that come about?
Really, just like anything, it was actually a little bit of a process to get hired by those guys. I mean, they had a bit of leverage, and hadn't done a record in, I think, four years at that point or something like that, maybe more. And, I was one guy on a list, and they liked some of the stuff I had done, and this is how it went. I had to go to L.A., and they were at a hotel, and they were interviewing about, to my knowledge, about 10 or 12 guys that they were just having a conversation with, just sitting by the pool talking, asking me things, and I hung out there for a couple of hours, and then I left, and the next guy comes through, and then they chose 3 guys that they actually started working with. And this is all, everything had to be top secret. Nobody could talk about it.
Right.
I had to make sure nobody was in my studio. But they actually came to Vegas and worked at a different studio with an out-of-town producer. And then they came to my place, and they worked with everybody for a couple of days. And then one other guy in California. Everybody got a couple days, and then they chose who they liked working with. So it was almost like the like American Idol of producers.
Cool.
And lucky enough, it went well enough. And of course, I was completely excited, completely into it. And I would have done whatever it took to make those albums as good as they were. So I was grateful they chose me, and we had a couple good hits. And
yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. Sound of Silence. How did you talk David into that?
I wish it was me. I'd like to take all the credit for Sound of Silence. No, it was really the definition of a team sport, of a rock band way of doing things, and it was basically the drummer Mike. They've done covers in the past, Shout and a couple different
Genesis.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they had done things like that in the past, and we weren't sure if they wanted to do a cover, but they said, if we're going to do a cover, let's start thinking of it now. So by the time the record's done, we'll have had the thought process. And so when we started that album, we didn't know what the cover was going to be. Nobody had chosen it. And on the way, how about this song? Nah. 4 days later, how about this song? Nah, David won't sing it. How about this song? No, Dan doesn't dig it. And then finally, Mike, the drummer, says, how about Sound of Silence? And the room kind of got quiet. What? Sound of, like that
Simon and Garfunkel.
The Simon and Garfunkel song? Yeah. Hello, darkness, my... I mean, it wasn't like that. It was, hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah.
But Dave went through the lyrics real quick and said, maybe. And Dan kind of listened to it and go, maybe. Came back the next day and said, yeah, we should maybe try that. And, of course, I think the original idea, I'm already thinking in my head, I'm already planning it out, hello, darkness, my old just to kind of disturb the whole thing up.
Yeah.
But it was Dan, the guitar player, who would be responsible for all that says, no, let's just take the guitar out of it. Let's just do it something completely different. Let's turn it into a ballad or something else. And so, I just started dicking around on the piano, really just trying to find a key for David to sing. So I'd be playing things and then trying to make it as, dark and kind of sexy as I could. And then David would sing along to it until I felt that he had the right key. But once we had it right, it's just, oh yeah, that's it. That'll be great. And then then just take the process of building the track up. At that time I had basically a computer and keyboard, to do all the orchestration and to arrange all that, to come up with all that. And basically I was kind of doing it a little more in the downtime before the guys would show up. I'd do a little bit, and we'd be working on other songs. And before we started that, I'd like to get there like a 8 or 9. And every day I'd do a little more, and sometimes I'd play it for them, sometimes I wouldn't. And all of a sudden I started playing it for them, and they loved it. I still was always kind of thinking that it was eventually going to evolve into, Down with the Sickness or something like that. But it didn't, and it was actually quite a challenge because it's really a verse. It's a song of 5 verses. There's no real chorus.
Right.
It's not like you're always blossoming the song up to hit the chorus hard. It's just verse, 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 verse. And so the way we combated that, start low and high, keep the orchestration going. The other interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is that it's a constant, the tempo is always speeding up. From the start of it to the end of it, it speeds up a lot. And you don't notice it because you're going through all the changes with it, but just ways of keeping it more interesting for the average person without them knowing. And then after we were done, everybody looks at each other and goes, that's freaking awesome, I think. that's awesome, right? That's really good.
Right.
And we all thought it was, and so record label comes, and I think they thought it was pretty good, but I don't think anybody other than us, the guys in the band and me, thought it was as good as we thought it was. But every artist always thinks their latest song is their best.
Sure.
And it wasn't really until people started hearing it that they decided, yeah, that's it. And they could see, the great thing about albums these days, putting an album out, is you can get the data almost instantly.
Yeah.
What are people playing, especially if the song's deeper on the list? If people are playing song number 7 on your album and that's what they're playing the most, that's the hit.
Yeah. I don't think they meant to have that be a single.
I don't think we thought it could be one.
Yeah.
I thought we knew it was good, movie song,
Yeah.
something, but I don't think radio's going to play that. There's no drums.
I was there for that change.
Wow.
If you were
What was that like? Tell me.
Obviously they work me
Yeah.
on the light.
Is that Jackie? Oh, no, sorry.
No.
I'm thinking of Five Fingers. So that
It
was
was Heather.
Warner.
It was Heather at Warner Brothers.
Right.
She's working me on the light.
Which is a great song.
I love that song.
Yeah, that's probably
one of my favorite Disturbed songs is the light.
Just fun side fact. That's probably one of my favorite mixes that I've done for any band. too.
Any bit, really?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
I love Disturbed because there's so much positivity in the music, but you think it's going to be like a down, but it's like love is alive, whatever.
Sometimes darkness will
the-
show you the light.
Yeah, exactly. But so they're working me on the light.
Right.
It's a great song. Cool. We're listening to the album, me and my former boss, and we hear Sound of Silence. And we both looked at each other and we said, fuck the light. We're playing Sound of Silence.
Wow.
And I called Heather and I said, Heather, we're playing Sound of Silence. She said, what? We're working the light. We got everything going on with the light. And I'm like, that's cool. We're playing Sound of Silence.
Wow.
And she goes, wow, okay. And 2 weeks later, we were already playing it here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Because I remember people are calling me, telling me, and I think you started playing it at night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And people, even though the light was already getting close to number 1 then, people are calling me, they're playing Sound of Silence. And I go, what? Just out of the blue? Yeah, they're playing it.
So Vegas is the one that bred that.
I think I remember a conversation like that.
Yeah.
Thinking, in fact, I think they were more upset than anything that you weren't focusing on the light still.
They were.
Because we needed the numbers to get it to number 1.
They were. And we ended up doing the light. We were there.
Yeah.
But Sound of Silence, I worked for somebody who was like, this is a great song. I don't give a shit
Wow.
what the record label says.
Yeah.
We're playing this song.
Yeah.
And we started pounding Sound of Silence.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
I loved hearing it.
Yeah. It's still just everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, was there pressure on you as a producer to recreate something like that for the next album, another smash ballad?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I think they didn't want, not just them, but honestly, almost any band is always looking for an anomaly like that. I'd call it an anomaly, not something that you can plan. But that's the truth. It's an anomaly, not something you can plan. Everything has to fall into place to make that work. Like I said, it took a good idea from the drummer, from Mike. It took David to be able to execute it. It took Dan to not want to play all over, heavy guitar all over top of it. And then ultimately, it took the manager, Jeff, to love it, and the label, and everybody, and then obviously the people. But, as far as pressure, you always have pressure to repeat the success of anything, even with the Five Finger guys. I mean, you're always trying to beat the last hit.
Right.
So, I guess the answer to your question is
I
yes.
just remember them trying to push another ballad the next album.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know if that one ever got pushed, but did it?
It did get pushed.
It did get pushed?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
Obviously,
it didn't work then.
It didn't work. But they had great songs on the next album, but it was the ballad wasn't the hit off the next album.
Yeah.
But those guys are great, and
I did love that song by the way too though. I love that they chose that it was a Sting song. Is that the one you're talking about?
All This Time.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah. One of my other favorite people that you work with, and I mean, she's so mysterious, but I've interviewed her and found her to be one of the coolest people I've ever come across. Is Maria from In This Moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another band that resides here. Many of them, right?
No, they don't reside here right now. She was just here. I think I can say
Are you
that.
working
just
with her
last
right
month.
now?
No, my son is. So he produced the last album,
Yeah.
and he's doing the current one too.
Because you bled your
I did 6
skills right into your kids, man. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean they're around.
Yeah.
I mean my daughter more from the business side and the management side, but definitely in those early Five Finger albums, Kane was in one room doing some editing and stuff. For him, he was working on his own stuff too, but always somewhat involved.
Yeah.
And he knew all the guys, and and sometimes it takes a certain mentality to work with artists. And I think the trick is that with both my kids, my artists tend to like them, and so they feel comfortable with them. Right. And so say with Maria and with any artist, I think she felt much more comfortable sort of go after me using Kane. And he really understood the band because he worked on those early songs.
Yeah.
He co-wrote songs like Blood and some other, In This Moment hits.
Yeah.
So he knew exactly who the band was, who she was, who Chris was, and he knew how to do it. He had the keys to the kingdom in the sense of my knowledge and, doing it. I mean, he did it. So so that worked out really well. And to circle around to your original question, she's one of a kind, which all the great artists are. I mean, It doesn't matter. Like even Ivan from Five Finger, he's one of a kind. Love him or hate him, he's one of a kind.
I love him.
And Maria too.
Yeah.
She's, I think the artists that rise above, in a certain sense, are artists who you can't get that same thing from someone else. You can try it. There's been the followers and stuff, but you can't get what Maria does from anybody else other than her. And that's true for AC/DC, for Metallica, for any of the top of those pyramid, even Nickelback. I mean, in a sense, they're special people at the top of those careers.
Talent requires a certain psychology, and each talent has their own, right?
Yeah.
And you've got, as a person who has to deal with all the different psychologies, how did you hone that skill? Because you're dealing 5 in one room at some point. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to say babysitter, but I mean, there's a certain skill that takes.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit tricky. Honestly, it's a lot easier. I've done some country projects too, and it's a lot easier with one artist.
Right.
Because then you can focus on them. When it gets to, 5 guys, or guys or girls, everybody's kind of got their own mini agenda, and everybody's got their own personality and their own home life, and it bleeds into the band. And it's not easy to live with the guys on a bus, so by the time you get done the tour, you're already maybe irritated at each other a little bit, and then you got to go into the studio, and then that's very difficult because that's the art. That's really where it's eternal. Once that record comes out, it's not changing.
Right.
So it was
Unless
always
you're
a
Taylor
challenge.
Swift.
Sorry? Yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely actually submitted some change-ups, after it's been on Spotify for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Very quietly and cleverly, because I didn't like something in the mix, or, usually at radio you're just the BDS or whatever you guys get it from. But that, I think that I love that part of it, actually. I don't shy away from that at all. I think part of the challenge is, as a producer, especially in that genre, is making everybody happy. It's difficult to make the drummer to the A&R guy happy. Not that I'm putting the drummer at the bottom of that chain.
No, but
just
they're the
guitar
backbone.
player,
They're
the
the
singer.
backbone. Yeah.
The singer's got to sing it. Maybe someone else wrote a lyric that it's not his and it's not as personal, but it's still a good lyric, so you still have to convince him to sing it. It's a difficult challenge, and to make everybody feel that they've been part of it and been involved, and it just the nature of the beast of artistic people. They're always running hot. They're always running like this wrecking this song is the worst tragedy, or not doing it the way they wanted is the worst tragedy in the world. And I think for producers like myself, just another song. Yes, it is important, but it's not the only song on the record. give a little here, you can take a little bit there. Everybody works with each other. I always like to have a very family pot style of producing where I didn't care. And the Sound of Silence is that. I didn't care where the idea came from. It's like, let's just get the best idea, and then everything else will take care of itself. Let's try to do the best music we can, and everything else will take care of itself. And maybe you don't like it now. There was a band actually you recently had on who, and I haven't listened to that podcast, by the way, so that it probably wouldn't have come up, but there's one member of the band who basically threatened to quit if this one song was created, let's just say. It was one of those kickbacks from the label, still needed their hit. So then the last song we did was more of a contribution from everybody in the band rather than a couple of writers. And to me, it's still almost my favorite song of that band's career. And I would think that many of those guys would actually say that as well. Yet, one guy had trouble with it, right? And even after they started playing live, he didn't want to play it live. But once the Carlotas start playing it, you have no choice but to play it live. And then once people decide, then you can come around to it. And once your life gets better because that song has helped you get better gigs, has helped you get more popularity for your other songs that you do love. I mean, it's all kind of a team spirit. One song doing well is good for all the other songs. And it doesn't matter if it's your song, someone else started it, let's just look at the focus of the band, making the band an eternal band rather than just one song that you had an agenda with. Like, I just don't like people's agendas really at all. Yeah. My only agenda is to give the band a lifetime career. That's really what the agenda is, and not even the best song. In some cases, you can't have the best song outside of the nature of what the band is, because then it just causes the fans to be confused. Right. So I don't want to overstate the intellectualism of it, but there's a little bit more, I think, that goes into sometimes there's not, but most times there's a little bit more to it than just burping it out there. That's probably the wrong word, but so getting back, circling around, I love the part of it that keeps people engaged. It's a little difficult when you get threatening emails in the middle of the night when somebody has a bad night. And these days, they have access to you. If you're looking at your phone, messages. There's some bands I've had to say, okay, no more messaging anybody. We're going to talk about these things in person because, as you know, different experience when you're face-to-face talking to someone than when you're typing on a keyboard.
Yeah, you're a keyboard warrior, all
full of
tough.
angst, and you've had 6 beer, and your girlfriend's behind you telling me, yeah, tell him that, or boyfriend. I think when people are together, it's a different atmosphere and a different vibe, and that was always my goal, is bring people together instead of push them apart. I wasn't ever trying to separate anybody and just take because obviously with every band there's some really talented people and some less talented people. That's just the nature of life, right? There's 5 of us in the rooms, 5 producers here. Yeah. Some of us will be better than others, right? Yeah. So, but everybody's important because everybody has to go out there and tour and sell it, and sometimes the least of us can give the best info, the best idea. Let's not discount it just because he's only written one song rather than 10. So.
Right. And I think I love the Sound of Silence story with how that all came together, because you are talking about a very successful band at that point in time, and one of the key components of that band, which is the guitarist, said, I'm not going to be selfish right now. Yeah. This is not what's best for the song for me to be jamming in it. Let's do this. And for someone to step back like that for the greater good. Yeah. And it became, obviously, it is their biggest song. Yeah. I mean, as much as we love their entire library, people who don't know The Light or whatever, Prayer or any of that, they know Sound of Silence, and it's because of the teamwork and the selfish. What's the word I'm looking for?
Selflessness.
There it is.
Unselfishness.
And I talk for a living, but anyways, I don't make a lot of money. Now you know why. But I think that's a great story for any band to, hey, look, here's a band that somebody, they could have all been like, we're Disturbed. Yeah, I'm gonna get that guitar, and done it.
That was really a defining moment, especially considering that maybe some other members of the band thought he should be playing guitar and thought he was maybe just being lazy. But he wasn't. He had a good idea.
It's great or good.
We listened. I entertained the idea. And thank God I did, because it's changed all of our lives. You know?
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the main songs that helped me purchase my studio when I bought it, was the royalties from that. Had I not had that song, I might have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, not in trouble, but it might have taken me a couple extra years to get the hide on it.
As we know
exactly. It now. Which, by the way, you're invited if you ever want to.
I do want to come down. Yeah. I have been there before. It is beautiful.
Oh, you have been there? You've been there when I was there?
Oh, bro. No, I think Kane was there. I don't think you were there.
All right.
Which we are going to get to when I was there. Okay. But I do have a question. When an artist is just stuck, their writer's blocking it, or they can't get the emotion of the singing, or whatever it is. They're just stuck.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you get them moving?
Well, if I can identify the reason why they're stuck, obviously that's the most thing to solve that, right? Many times it's themselves battling themselves. It's themselves unable to let go and just work. So to me, it's, first of all, everybody take a break, watch a movie, not just for 2 hours, but let's take, days off, 4 days off. Don't worry about it. It's going to work. Don't worry about it. Go have some fun. And when come back, it's left foot, right foot. Nothing has to get solved in a day. I'm a big believer that and this is actually my son talking through me, Kane would always say, it's probably quicker to try the idea than to talk about how it's not going to work. Like, let's just try it. Like, don't censor yourself. And in fact, that's why a lot of writers in the past throughout time, I'm not saying mine, but, lots of writers write far better on substances than not, because the watchdog's gone and you're not second guessing yourself. You're just letting it flow. So that's the key thing, is to just let it flow. I'm not saying you have to do drugs, but you have to be able to just let the music come out, let the ideas flow.
Microdose.
I'm all about the
Me too.
microdose.
I'm a fan of microdose.
But we were talking about psychedelics, though. I'm also a fan of the max dose, though, too. Yes. But this is a different podcast.
That's a blast.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, no, it's not different. I'll talk microdosing right now.
Awesome.
Are you kidding me?
What?
I'm actually a fan of LSD.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better. I think it's better.
I mean, look, we would not have all those Beatles songs if it wasn't for that.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm a huge fan.
Me too.
Of psychedelics in general.
Psychedelic therapy is. I was just talking about it today because I'm calling the summer of 2025 the summer of love.
Oh.
Because I plan on microdosing this summer.
Oh, okay.
All summer.
Okay.
And the key is to do every few days incredibly subtle amounts.
Okay.
You're still working and doing it,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But then, like, maybe once or twice a month, bring it a little bit up.
Yeah.
Where you're having a day by the pool and laughing or
and
whatever.
It's a reset. Yeah.
It clears out the cobwebs.
Yeah.
And it creates creativity and focus and all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So having that, have you ever been in the studio just blasted and working on music? Have you ever done that?
No, not at all.
Come on.
Actually, that is the actual answer, though, as far as when I've worked for people, because I have a different responsibility than the artist has. The artist can do whatever they want. It's their world, whatever it takes. But for me, I just found that since that's not my natural day-to-day headspace, I either can't get anything done, or I come back the next day and the Pro Tools session is in a completely disarray and nothing's making sense.
Because you were coloring with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something I can't work. And do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm even if the band comes up with great ideas, I'm not capturing anything because I'm in my own corner of the room.
Yeah.
So so and I'm the not the controller, but I'm the facilitator.
Yeah.
The guy that has to make sure that we get some good results
good,
from that, even if it's personal results of people. The last thing that you want, it would be like a therapist, doing the drugs that
with the client.
yeah, you know,
I mean, that
They
might
might-
have happened in the past. I don't
yeah.
know.
I
Yeah.
mean,
you never know.
even you know, yeah. I mean, I've heard about some of the psychedelic retreats where the
for sure, in
facilitator
Colorado and
is
stuff, yeah.
joining in to be on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
You know, as the patient
Yeah.
or the client. But I just found for me it's not great.
No, I smoked pot once when I was on the radio.
Oh yeah.
Within my first year of my career,
Okay.
I smoked pot. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the buttons were. I didn't know anything. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
But microdosing's different.
Yeah.
It's you don't even know
Yeah.
because it's like a vitamin almost. It's like taking a vitamin.
Yeah.
It's so subtle.
Yeah. I found that if you're talking about LSD or shrooms.
LSD.
So I have never microdosed LSD, but I found that for me personally, the psilocybin microdosing was not great for me. 'Cause
Yeah.
It was almost just like a little tickle. But I didn't, an irritating tickle. I wanted
Yeah.
to go further. I wanted to
Yeah.
go to the next stage, right? And so
Yeah.
it was almost like an irritation to me. But on the other hand, my headspace and my personality is, I didn't really need that anyways, right? I prefer to take the once a month or every 6 months and go
And blast out.
a little deeper.
Yeah.
And
Head to Sedona and see
Yeah.
you later.
I want to.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Jesus. I don't
Yeah.
want to.
What's up,
I don't want to be just irritated. Feel like I got to tickle the whole day.
Yeah,
But
no,
for some
that's
people,
fair.
though, it really works. So
Yeah, I don't like to lose control like that.
Right.
I'm a control freak
Yeah.
at the same
I am
time,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I like to take it right up to where I feel like I did 2 lines of cocaine, but I don't have the Jones.
Right.
That's where I like.
I'm
to
probably the only one you've had on the show that's never done coke, or I shouldn't say that. I've done it one time in my early life,
Yeah.
and I passed out on the floor. And
It's nasty.
Thankfully, I had a nurse who was in the room at
Yeah.
the time, and
Cocaine's nasty. It's a nasty
Yeah.
drug.
I've never seen anybody do great. Well, I shouldn't say do great things because lots of good music as well.
Oh yeah,
I
a
mean,
great song.
I mean, probably, yeah, exactly. Even that in
Mm-hmm.
of itself, I think for a lot of people maybe it works, but I've seen so many bad repercussions of that use
Oh yeah.
with people I
It's
know
nasty.
and have worked with, or people I haven't worked with and just knew that. To me, it just seemed like the wrong drug.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
It's like one of the worst drugs. LSD is actually one of the safest drugs, and
Yeah.
that blows
Yeah.
people's minds
Yeah.
when you hear that. But I do want to talk to you about one of the tragedies in the rock world on many levels, which is the band Hell Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Vinny.
Vinny. And I say tragedy aside from the fact that Vinny passed, but that band was about to take off.
Yeah.
I mean, that last album was
Yeah.
a masterpiece. And
Thank you. Yeah.
it,
Yeah, I loved it too. I was very disappointed that it didn't get more support from the powers that be. Let's call it.
I tried.
I won't single them out.
I tried.
Definitely not you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was, that was the one, and unfortunately, some people higher ups lost faith after Vinny passed, and so it's unfortunate that he didn't get to experience all that glory that we had in creating it, and it's unfortunate that he passed in the middle of making that too. So
I mean, didn't he just finish his drum parts?
thankfully he was done, in a certain sense. Even all the music wasn't done, the drum tracks were. And so, and his sort of guidance and supervision and contribution, is more at the stage of throwing it to Chad Gray
Yeah.
and letting Chad do his thing. So, and Tom had to come back and the other guys, Christian and Kyle too. But, yeah, it was the wrong, I don't know how you say it, the best time that he could have passed in a sense, because he kind of left it to us. He said, here we go,
Yeah.
see ya.
It's like his guardian angels or whatever was like, look, we're going to take you, but we're going to make sure
Yeah.
you leave your last piece of work.
And it's unfortunately more people didn't get to hear that. Like I said, I think we were all pretty positive about it and optimistic, and I still listen to it every now and then and go, man, that's something that people just won't hear.
Such a good album.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite songs is on that album. Oh My God.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I love that song.
Yeah. Chad worked his ass off on the songs.
Did. And that's when I was at Hideout. I did come to Hideout when Chad was in the processes of doing his vocals.
Okay.
Because I hung out with him in the back in the
Okay.
alley. We hung out in the alley while he smoked, and he was talking about gearing up.
Did I know you were there?
I don't think you knew.
I must not have known you were there because I definitely would have invited you in.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I had allergies that ate me for a couple of weeks. How did you have to work with Chad on getting him? I mean, that was a difficult time.
Yeah.
How did you work with Chad during that time to get the best out of him?
Yeah, I think that was one of those situations where, he was doing better by working. Some people maybe handle grief differently. Some people need to take a break, process it. I think in Chad's case, he was better for continuing on, and it was really left foot, right foot, and let's see what we get done today. And if we get done nothing and we just talk, that's fine. If we get something done, that's fine. And, go home early if you want, stay late if you want, just kind of leave it open to the universe and the guidance and just see how it goes, And he was focused and into it, and it was good. It was good, actually. It was a lot of work, but it was good.
I mean, because God, man, some of the stuff on that album, just such a tragedy.
Great lyrics, he spent a lot of time on, we hashed a lot of things back and forth. I don't think I've redone the song so many times. He didn't want to let anything go till it was absolutely perfect, what he wanted to say, and it was good.
What's your favorite Vinny story?
My favorite Vinny story is actually a story that he's never heard. How about that?
Oh,
this will be amazing.
Okay.
I think I can tell this one. So at the end, was it Blood for Blood? I think it was maybe exclamation mark, whatever. We had finished the record, and his management came in to listen to it. And I had actually given him a gift a couple of years, or maybe a year earlier, a Christmas gift, where I was making my own vodka. And he's a vodka drinker, so not in the state and not in the city and not at my house, but I was making my own vodka, and I just wanted him to try it. He's a Sky vodka drinker.
Yep.
I just wanted to know what he thought of it, so I gave him. I put in a that Crystal Head skull, a bottle that looks so cool. So I made it. I put it in that. Corked it. On top, I put this wax seal with my letter C on it to give it to him. And then I was at his house a couple times, throughout the months after that, and he never even cracked it, never even drank it. So I had a second bottle at my studio that I would open every now and then. It was in the freezer, right? But I don't tell people it's there, and it was just there. And for this listening party, he brought a bottle of Sky, right? His typical 2-liter bottle of Sky. He's pouring, everybody drinks, everybody's drinking it. The band's already gone. Or maybe they were just at the end of getting ready to go. The management's sitting on the couch, and I'm just sitting at the front of the console playing music for everybody, going song by song, and then we talk about it for a little while. And all of a sudden he puts down a shot in front of me, and I can smell it, and I know it's mine,
Uh-huh.
And I go, oh, he's never tried this before. And I didn't tell him it was actually cut a little bit stronger than the average bottle of vodka. It wasn't 40%. It was actually stronger. But he must have just opened the freezer, grabbed the Crystal Head out of the freezer, and started pouring that. And that's when the party went completely, I wouldn't say sideways, but that's when some of the guys had to leave and go home. But Vinny stayed there pretty much till the end, till he was on the couch. Until the managers kind of were inching out the back door, telling me, "Don't say anything. We're going. See ya."
Yeah.
But I just loved it because he drank my vodka, and
it whooped his
didn't
ass.
say it was horrible.
Didn't say it, but it whooped his ass a little bit.
And never mentioned the next day. Never, I don't think he realized it, and that was cool too. And I never told him that. By the way, that vodka you were drinking was mine, right? Never mentioned it, and we, next record we never even talked about it, And by then I wasn't making it anymore, so it's like, it's over and done with. I always meant to tell him that, but I mean, we just never got to it. So, in fact, this is probably the first time publicly I've ever told that. So,
he was such a mainstay, not just in Dallas, but here as well in Las Vegas, and it was such a huge loss.
Oh, he was the mayor of Las Vegas as far as the rock world went.
Yeah.
There was not a rock. If he was in town, there's not a rock show he wasn't at and welcome to.
And I'm telling you, he's very stoked that we're doing this, because he told me one day when I ran into him somewhere, he grabbed me by the shoulders, and he looked at me, and it was regarding KILPOP, and he looked at me and he said, "Do not stop.
Yeah.
Do not stop."
Yeah.
And so here we are, not stopping.
Yeah. That was what he did. He inspired people to keep going and do it for the passion, and he was passionate. He didn't have to work. He didn't have to keep going out there, and he loved it, and he would do it until he couldn't,
And cook for everybody too.
He did.
And he was a masterful cook. He made the best salsa, and he made that shelled jalapeno with the peanut butter and the Fritos and the jelly.
Yeah.
It sounds gross. It's the most amazing thing you'll ever put in your mouth. At least it's in the top 5.
And not just that, he had the After Effects covered too, in the sense that he would have the cucumber and lemon water.
Yeah.
So that when you were just dying of thirst at the end of the night, it was there, tasting great, fresh. I mean, he had lots of little touches that not everybody would.
Yeah, he was the man. How do you pitch an artist? Is there an artist that you went out to pitch? I mean, besides Ozzy, obviously, but is there, like, right now, do you have somebody that you would love to go pitch? Like, I want to do this person's work.
I've really only pitched a couple in my life. Most of them, lucky for me, have come to me.
Oh, that's
which
cool.
is either just friend referrals, cold calls, their managers calling me, their label calling me, whatever. There's really only been 2. And this is kind of why I don't really pitch very much. Because one, I won't even mention the band, but one guy's I pitched didn't know who I was, and basically looked at me in their dressing room for a little bit of time and said something like, "Do you have a card?" Like, no, I actually don't have a card, but, so let's just say it didn't go well. That band didn't ever go on to greater things, but I love that band so much, and I still love them now. They still could do great things, but it wasn't with me. And actually, sorry, there's one other band who did go on to fantastic things who called me. Their label called me, and I so wanted to do that album. And I met with the label, and the artist wouldn't meet with me because he just had other ideas of how his career was going to go. And it was great, still to this day. But I'll tell you about another artist that I pitched. I'm pitching right now one. And he basically, it's not even a rock artist. It's like a country artist, like a folk artist.
Like
almost.
full-blown country, yeah.
A
Mumford & Sons country
type
thing? Okay.
I would say even countryer.
Okay.
Like we're talking...
Bluegrassy.
Bluegrassy.
Okay.
Exactly right. And I just randomly found him up in Canada when I was there, and, I've kind of, I can't figure it out. I mean, he's respectful to me and awesome, but I can't push him to start working. He's just not working at all. Whether he's actually he's captaining tugboats up there, so he's not really in music. And I saw him at a club at a jam, and I go, "Who's this guy?"
Right.
That's the guy. Yeah.
Can't get him in the...
like I said, he's friendly. I'll see him. I'll walk by even when he's on his tugboat or his whatever he's doing, and wave to him. He'll wave to me and be friendly and say, "Yeah, we're going to this island for a week. I won't be back for a week. I'll call you then." And then he comes back and doesn't call me.
Wow.
So how about that? I'm not even telling you how.
Churko's trying to get this dude, and he's like, "Yeah, it's cool. I'm good."
Yeah. Having said that, generally it goes a different way.
Yeah.
But, I just figure, if it's meant to be, it will. I mean, that's really the story of my life, and I think should be everybody's life. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. If it's not, it won't. Keep going. Keep trying. Don't take offense to it. I'm not offended by it. I think he's awesome still. Maybe he'll want to work with me. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe he's fighting his own demons, his own battles, wants to clear some shit on his own first before he, puts his best foot forward. It might not have anything to do with me.
Right.
So if the universe wants it to happen, it will. And if not, I'm fine with that.
One more question. Explain mastering. We don't really know. We just think, oh, they make it better, prettier. What album would you take that you've done and remaster it, make it? Explain that process.
So mastering has evolved to be a little different now than it's been in the early stages. In the early stages of music, it took so much effort to do that first mix. It might take like 3 days in a studio, or maybe you mastered it quick, or you mixed it quickly, but it took a lot of resources and money to go into a studio in those days and mix, and you had an assistant and a mixer and the producer and blah blah blah. There's more people involved, and it was on analog tape, and so what would happen was you'd think it was awesome. And then you sit at home with it for 2 weeks and go, oh, there's just some things that aren't quite right. But maybe you didn't have the budget to go back and redo anything. So let's just send it to this guy who's going to try to fix as much as he can. And basically it's just, but then you're only dealing with the 2 tracks, the left and right. You don't have the multi-track. You don't have the drums separate and the guitars and all that. So you got just a 2-track master, let's call it. And then you just do what you can to format that better. Maybe you need more top end. Maybe you can do clever little moves and dynamic processing that brings the bass down on certain notes, pumps the kick drum up a little bit louder on certain things, without having to get everybody back in the studio and pay $2,000 a day for a studio time. So that was one reason for it. The other reason is a lot of times you just want to kind of mix and make the magic, and then maybe it's not the right level to press. In the early days, honestly, mastering was about fitting it into vinyl, onto vinyl first. So you couldn't have a lot of bottom end on vinyl because it would start skipping. So you had to have a guy before that process that said, okay, we're going to cut the bottom end here, we're going to roll it off here, this has got too much top end, it's not going to translate well. Maybe radio's not going to play it because it doesn't, you know how radio is. Yep. You play this song, and then this song, the one in the middle, kind of has to be similar, right? You don't want to be, have too many changes. So you kind of reform it. A master can make it sound, in a sense, a little bit more similar to other things, to let's call it a control level. I'm probably taking too much time to actually explain this. So a center control level, and sometimes they're even doing in the old days the fade outs. The band's playing forever in the old days, and then the mastering guys actually bringing the main fader down. So he's got control over if you hear that last little guitar solo, gem or not. And, just, I guess, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the mix. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. It's like a last final glaze on your cake that says, here's the cake, but we're just going to put it in with this extra little icing, and we're going to just try to bump it up the quality up just a little bit. And in the old days, it was more meaningful, because these days, now you can generally hit a button and it brings up your mix. Oh, I just need the hi-hat down. Or it brings up your mix exactly the way that it was, with the computers and all that, so that you can just bump the vocal level up a little bit, because that was just a little too quiet on that day. Your ears were tired and you just didn't get it right. But still very important. Now I would never want to take anything away from them. Most of the time in my early days, my early career, I didn't have the budgets always when I started on the record, so I couldn't always go to a great mastering engineer. Say by the time you get to Disturbed, you have great mastering guys. You have budgets for great talented people. I didn't always have that, and I was disappointed in the early days, so I ended up just learning how to do it myself and doing it myself, saving a little bit of money in the budget for the band so we could record longer. And so because of that, a lot of the records I've done, I've mastered myself or with Kane, or now a new guy, Tristan Harden, who did a lot of my later records as far as the mastering goes. But and then I just started to love that process. I just started to like doing it, and that way when I'm mixing, I'm thinking about the mastering, and I'm actually running it through my mastering chain, so I kind of know what's going to happen at the end too. And that was just for me a more effective way of getting it right quicker than sending a mix I think is amazing to some guy who sends it back to me because he thought it needed X, Y, Z. And it just sounds completely different. Like, you'd be surprised how much you can change just a left-right stereo mix, especially these days, with electronic equipment. So I don't know, did that explain it?
How do you feel about AI?
I think AI is, I don't really form an opinion of it because I'm a believer that technology cannot be stopped. And I think that if you look back when the Beatles were on 4 tracks of tape versus the end game of having 24 tracks, I don't know, maybe they even had 48. They probably wouldn't have had 48 tracks by the end of that, but 24 tracks of tape, they got better and better. When Eddie Van Halen had a new Marshall amp with hotter gain pickups, it changed music. And maybe B.B. King was saying, I don't know if I like those new Marshall amps. I mean, you know, music used to be mono. Radio would only play mono music. Then it got stereo. So, you know, and now it's, you know, surround sound. It's like an Atmos kind of thing now. So, you know, when I'll go even further, all of a sudden you could have a drum machine. Well, the drummers hated that because now they're being replaced from drum machines. And then string keyboards. You know, all of a sudden there's no symphonies. But guess what? There still were symphonies. Guess what? There still were drums. You find a different way of doing it, and the drum machine becomes a supplement, and a keyboard becomes a supplement. Or for a lower budget artists who can't afford to go hire 30-piece string
Right,
section.
Neil Peart style.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I just think about all the good things that it's done. And yeah, there's going to be some bad things, and there's some pretty bad drum machine music in the world still to this day.
Right.
In a sense, because now it takes on a different shape. But I just think it's going to find its way, and it's going to happen. So rather than hate on it and rather than complain and bitch about it, let's maybe try to find some effective uses for it and some ways that it can make music better. I can't say it's going to do that, but I can't say it can't. It won't. I can't say it won't. I would say whether or not you like it, it's here. So let's use it. Try to use it with talented people to make the best music we possibly can.
Kevin, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
Thanks.
you. Thank you for coming by. And I'm always
Yeah.
going to love to have you. So
Yeah,
I want to come to the Hideout too.
You're always
Let's
welcome.
go.
You're always
Yeah,
welcome
I
anytime.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.